Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Renu Tyagi from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today we will be discussing the module titled Mode of Human Adaptation in Pre-State Societies, Hunting and Food Gathering. The learning objectives of the module are: number 1, the module will help the learner to understand the concept of adaptation. It will help the learner to understand the hunting and gathering societies around the world. The module presents an array of examples helping in the deeper understanding of the topic. Now let us have a look at the introduction. In some parts of the world, there are some societies which are still dependent upon hunting wild animals, fishing and gathering all varieties of vegetables and fruits to support their dietary needs. Human beings began to domesticate varieties of plants and animals roughly around 10,000 years ago. Today only few communities still subsist on hunting and gathering. It is reported that the few societies who subsist on hunting and gathering mode of livelihood are found in relatively isolated, inhospitable environments such as dense rainforest, deserts and the frozen tundra. From an ecological perspective, there is a close relationship with the hunter-gatherers and their given environment. By studying hunting and gathering societies, anthropologists seek to understand the development of social structure of the communities. A community's cultural patterns, sometimes regarded as undeveloped, is often termed as primitive due to their lifestyle patterns. In broadest terms, can be considered as those communities which are in harmony with the nature in its purest form. Given this form of living, these communities live upon hunting animals, gathering the wild plants and any other source of food material available for them. Considering the archaeological evidences, the hunting and gathering communities were the basis of early, middle and late Stone Age societies. These societies inform us about the fundamental component of human development and history. It is widely accepted that hunter-gatherer societies have existed in all continents. The communities which are hunter and gatherers survive mostly in tropical forest, semi-desert areas, boreal forest, the tundra and the Arctic. One perspective about these communities is that they settle in all environment where agricultural, colonization and other forms of displacements have not yet occurred. These societies are defined principally according to their dependence on the non-domesticated resources, subsistence through hunting, trapping, fishing and gathering. In many societies, cultivation or herding coexist with the hunting and gathering, that is HG mode. An exchange often provide people with some item not available from the local sources. Typically, these societies are small scale, egalitarian and live in the low population density areas, although not in all cases. Their pattern of energy flow, including diet, labor use, mobility and optimizing behavior, have been used as a model for understanding past hunter-gatherer societies in areas that are now agricultural, and also to eliminate the behavior of other hominids, because hunter-gatherers subsistence has been dominant for about 90% of the history of Homo sapiens sapiens, about 99% of the time since hominids first evolved. From an ecological understanding, human societies have coexisted with the environment around them. Human beings have survived and have thrived through time, and we all, I repeat, thrived through time and we will continue to do so. Today, if we look around us in general, there are many modern ways that help us adapt and make our life easier. But this was not the case for our ancestors. Let's understand the historical origin. The hunting and gathering was the first and the most successful adaptation by humans. This was later followed by agriculture. The environment provides for all, but it also challenges the organism and eliminates the weak, known as the natural selection by Charles Darwin. Adapting to these different environmental conditions have made survival possible for every organism and also help them to climb the ladder of evolution. Figure 1 illustrates historical origin of hunting activities as indicated by prehistoric wall paintings. Adaptation is the evolutionary process whereby an organism becomes better able to live in its habitat or habitats. Adaptation has been defined as the ability of an organism to adjust to a changing environment such that survival and reproduction are enhanced. Humans are a product of natural evolution and in their genetic makeup would reflect the outcome of adaptation to their respective environments. Now let's see the level of adaptation. Behavioral adaptation is the most rapid response that an organism can make and is based upon learning rather than genetic inheritance. It is also the most flexible. Anthropologists focus more on the adaptive responses made by the individuals and group by means of cultural behavior. Cultural behavior is patterned, shared and traditional and the most distinctive feature of the human species. For example, when in cold climate we immediately put a warm cloth to shelter ourselves from the cold. Physiological adaptation is another kind of adaptation that an organism goes through. It is activated slower than the behavioral adaptation and is the physical response to the climate or environment of any organism. For example, in hot climate our body sweats which help us in cooling the body, and in cold climate our body parts shiver to generate the heat in the body. The third level of adaptation is the genetic demographic adaptation. This takes a very long time to be activated. If the environment perturbation continues over a long period of time, behavioral and physiological responses are supplemented. It has a slow rate of activation taking several generations and affect group rather than individual. For example, bipedalism among Homo sapiens. Due to the constant use of stretching the neck for food, the giraffe eventually evolved with a long neck so that it can reach for food easily. Figure 2 highlights the different stages of adaptation. The hunting and the gathering societies. Societies that rely primarily on the hunting wild animals, fishing and gathering wild fruits, berries, nuts and vegetables to support them for survival. Until humans began to domesticate plants and animals, all human societies were hunter-gatherers. Today, only a tiny fraction of the world's population support themselves in this manner and they survive only in isolated areas far from the modern world such as the deserts, the frozen tundra and the dense rainforest. Given the close relationship between hunter-gatherers and their natural environment, hunting and gathering tribes may provide valuable information for anthropologists as well as many scientists seeking to understand the development of human social structures and also to understand how societies existed in the ancient times. Figure 3 illustrates hunting as a mode of adaptation in pre-state societies. Figure 4 displays gathering as a mode of adaptation in pre-state societies. Now let's see hunting and gathering as an important part of human culture at one point of time. And we all started out as hunter and gatherers. Hunting for food was specially carried out by the men of the societies because of their physical power and the task of gathering fruits, nuts, berries and yams, which were mostly done by the women and children. Figure 5 illustrates the division of labor among hunting and gathering societies. Hunting and gathering goes hand in hand as our ancestors could not rely only on hunting as hunting needed more time and more energy, and sometimes the men have to return empty-handed after days of hunting. In simpler terms, hunting had a 50-50 chances, while on the other hand, gathering was always successful, a 100% success every time. Thus, they never have to go hungry even if the hunting would go wrong, as the fruits and the berries were always served as their backups. To date, the hunting way of life has been the most successful and persistent adaptation man has ever achieved. Hunter and gatherers were the original affluent society because they had abundant resources to satisfy their relatively limited wants and needs. Hunter and gatherers live in small groups known as the local bands. These are the groups of about 30 to 50 women, men and children who cooperate with each other in the quest for subsistence. Since hunter-gatherers are food collectors rather than food producer, they wander over wide geographic areas. This gives them the nomadic nature whereby permanent settlement are highly unlikely. Figure 6 illustrates settlement pattern among hunting and gathering societies. The hunting and gathering societies are identified for their egalitarian nature, as these societies had almost equal gender equality. The role of the women in gathering, which made up most of the diet, ensured their high status in hunting and gathering societies. Mode of adaptation in hunting and gathering can be easily understood. The mode of adaptation can be distinguished by the different reaction velocities they show towards environmental changes, or by whether they spread biologically or culturally. Both aspects are connected by the fact that successful adaptation can be measured by reproductive success in the long run. Figure 7 exhibits general dynamism of hunting and gathering societies. As we discuss about the hunting and gathering societies or the pre-state societies generally, we imagine ancient pre-human societies where humans were still in its ape feature trying to evolve into what we are today. But this conception is quite not very right, as they are to this date societies that depend on their hunting and gathering instinct and still live their lives in a pre-state situation. We can take the example of the Bushmen of the Kalahari desert. They are living in a hostile environment where they have adapted to their environment very well biologically and functionally. The Bushmen have lean and thin bodies which does not allow water loss from the body, and through decades of evolution their genetic code allow them to go without water for more than any average non-Kalahari resident. The Kung Bushman adult spend only an average of about 12 to 19 hours per week in food gathering activities, and thus they have a great deal of time available for resting and for visiting. Figure 8 depicts Bushmen preparing the tool for hunting. They have adapted tools that help them to hunt efficiently, and also they have adapted to different hunting ways like camouflaging self into the tall dry grasses of the semi-desert, use of poison arrows that ensure a kill whenever hit and it kills faster. They also have a better understanding of their surrounding, as living in a dry region they know which tuber to eat that will provide them with water, and the only tool they use are their bare hands to dig up the tubers from the ground and a small stick scraper to scrape the tuber to get the moisture out. We have many other tribes like the Maasai of Africa. Even in India, tribes like the Chenchu, Bhils, etc. still live as hunter and gatherers, though the situation is fast changing. Their hunting technique leads to adaptation of bows and arrows, spears that help them hunt more efficiently in among the bushes. Tools are simple, generally made up of stone, wood, bone or other natural material. There are usually few or no techniques for storage and food is generally consumed immediately. Spears, bows and arrows, nets and traps, digging sticks, needles, pins, antlers, hammers, axes, etc. are some of the tools used for hunting and gathering. Figure 9 depicts type of the prehistory tools used as adaptation material. Now let's understand the adaptation in cold areas. Adaptation in cold areas would be different as the cold environment has different adaptive requirements. The extreme cold regions demand warm clothes. Our ancestors covered their bodies with animal skin, especially animal like seal and Arctic fox or even the polar bear, as these skin help in preventing heat loss from the body and the fur add on to the providing more heat. They depend on these animals for food as the land is constantly covered with the snow and the only food they were to depend on was meat, which provided them with the protein and fat that helped them resist the severe cold. Hunting in these environmental conditions is very difficult. Our ancestors adapted to harpoons and fishing techniques which were more efficient for these regions. To this date, tribes like the Inuits of the Eskimos tribe, I repeat, to this date, tribes like the Inuits or Eskimos tribe still follow this mode of subsistence. Through the course of evolution, the genetic modification of people living in the cold region have resulted in some physical adaptation like short stature, bulky bodies, as to restore the fat that is essential as stored energy, and small nostrils that help in minimizing the entry of cold air in the body. Now let's summarize what we have learned so far in this particular module. We have understood that anthropologists study societies including the hunter-gatherers. They also study societies that are agricultural and industrialized. The view of the anthropologist is often biased if he or she happen to belong to the particular area of the study. When studying a particular area, there is an inclination to judge it based on particular standard or based on comparisons. Therefore, hunter-gatherers are said to be living on the edge as they are able to survive in the most extreme environment. In addition, the notion that hunter-gatherers being primitive and somehow inferior compared to the others is very wrong in their classification based on unilinear evolutionary principles. Many also tend to believe that the life of a hunter-gatherer is very difficult, that it is very hard to make a living. This has led to the notion that hunter-gatherers are living a savage life on hostile lands, walking around, gathering things and surviving on them and subsisting on the edge of starvation. Adaptation is the process of creating beneficial relationship with the environment by means of behavioral, physiological and genetic demographic changes. Scientists and theorists have given many theories of evolution and how people moved forward from the pre-state societies to the modern era of urbanization and governed societies. We understand very well the concept of evolution and how we passed from walking on 4 limbs to bipedalism. We can still see the way of life of the tribes like the Bushman and the Inuits and imagine how they live in such extreme environmental conditions. They provide valuable information about the hunting and gathering societies. This helps scientists and the social scientists reconstruct the past based on the behavioral patterns of these groups of people. Thank you.